This is the kit we'll be using to make the Bauble card. You'll need the vintage wallpaper clear stamp, the SW Merriam Bright Christmas clear stamp set, a WOW embossing pen, a suitable embossing ink, I'm using Versamark, your trusty heat gun, and we'll be using primary Ebony Ultra High, clear gloss Ultra High, silver pearl, I've got super fine here, violet pearl in regular, and lastly some metallic silver. Next you want to cut out your card. I've made a template that's 1/2 centimetre wider than the card. This is a C6 card, and you need to overlap the edges slightly and the bottom. That way you'll still have something on the fold so you can hinge the card, a flat bottom so it'll stand up, and it'll be symmetrical if you overlap everything the same. So just draw around that with a pencil. And you would then cut that out, and in the grand tradition, here's one I did earlier. So you'll notice we still have a hinge left over at the side, a flat section which the band will go across, and it should stand up with the flat bottom. Now on the top I've cut through the bauble hanger. On the back I'm just going to snip that off. It gets in the way otherwise and makes the hanger look odd. So there we have it. We'll carry on with that hanger, and I'm going to show you how I've vandalised these stamps to make them easy to use. I've taken the Christmas tree from the Merriam Bright set, and I've just snipped off the trunk area, leaving the baubles, and stick that to my acrylic plate, and that's now ready. Using the WOW embossing pen, I'm just going to colour around the bauble section. It's normally colourless. This has picked up some pink from somewhere, but that helps you see where I've coloured. And we're now going to double or triple emboss this area depending on how well powder goes on. So that's now sticky. I'm using the metallic silver, sprinkling it liberally over the area, tap it off, and I'm now going to set that. And while it's hot, I'm going to cover it with another layer of silver. Tap that off, and if you find it stuck to areas it shouldn't be, then using a paintbrush and a light touch you can brush the excess away. Another tap, and heat set that again. If you're not quite quick enough to get a layer on while it's hot, let it cool down, and then you can use the pen again to add ink over the top. Add the powder, brush any excess away with your paintbrush. And then this time, while it's hot, I'm going to imprint the Christmas stamp into it to get some texture. Wait a couple of seconds for it to cool down, peel off the stamp, and there we have the texture, bit out of focus, on the bauble hanger. When you're finished with the colour, the excess taps back into the jar, and from bitter experience, make sure you put the lid back on. Next, we'll be using silver pearl to put the vintage wallpaper on the bottom section. So peel off the protective sheets, apply to your large acrylic plate, and ink up with your favourite embossing ink. And I'm just doing the top section before we print approximately halfway up. Now you'll notice it's not quite wide enough, so I'm going to ink again just on the edge. And then lining up with the faint impression I can see, I'm just going to finish the pattern. Taking the silver pearl, I'll cover that completely, and you'll notice it goes on white. Just give that a tap, and then tip the excess back into the jar. Quick wipe away of any powder, and then we'll heat set that. It's not picking up very well on the camera, but that'll be a nice subtle pattern on the bottom of the bauble. Next, we're going to do the black strip that goes across the middle, and we're going to use lots of embossing layers on this, so make sure you have a fairly thick card to start with to help stop it curling. This is 10.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters for the size of card. Apply your embossing ink directly to the paper, and then cover it with the black Ebony Ultra High. Now these are larger crystals and don't stick quite so well on the first layer, so only tap very gently, and then return the rest to the pot. Now these crystals are liable to blow away if you directly heat them from the top, so for this one I shall be heating from the bottom, and that should prevent any blow away. I'm going to hold it with a pair of tweezers, if I can pick it up, and then using the heat tool from the bottom, try and get that in shot. There we go. So that's the first layer, and we've got a fairly even coverage on that. We'll let it cool down, and I'm going to repeat that process a couple more times just to make sure we have a nice glassy even layer. So this is the second layer of powder, and I'll have a go at heating it from the top now because we don't want the bottom layers to be melting. So a tip is to start the heat tool before you move across, and then start at a higher distance. This way the heat tool warms up and the air is less brisk, and hopefully we'll get not too much blow away. Okay, I'm fairly happy with that. Not too much blow away apart from the strips nipping off. Let that cool, and then the next layer we're going to do is of the violet pearl. We'll apply that in exactly the same way. So once the black is cool, add your embossing ink directly to it, and then using clean sheet of copy paper, I'm now going to add a layer of violet pearl. Again, this is a product that goes on white and then does magic, particularly on dark surfaces. Pop this back into the pot. And again, I'm just going to try and catch corner with the tweezers before heating. Don't overheat at this stage because you don't want the pearl swimming around on molten black beneath. So just heat enough to get it to melt and sink in. The final stage is to use the very large ultra high crystals of clear gloss. And the idea is that as these sink in, they will push the violet pearl away and we'll get the mottled appearance. So we'll just ink that up. Sprinkle a layer of clear ultra high over the top. Give it a fairly firm tap. Pop the excess back. And again, heat from the top and heat from away so that you don't scatter these crystals. So hopefully you can pick up that there is now a mottling appearance on there, and if you want more mottle then just add another layer of clear. The final layer is the Merry Christmas sentiment from the Merry and Bright Christmas set, and I'm just going to ink that up with my embossing ink. And then, because it's a clear stamp, you can line it up in the centre, and as you push down, try not to slide it, but you'll also be able to see the areas that you've printed, as they'll get darker as you push down. And try not to get too many air bubbles underneath before peeling it off. And then we'll cover that with the silver metallic powder. And I've not got a perfect imprint, but never mind. Adds to the distress look. And if I can find my paintbrush, we'll just take off little bits of the excess. That have been attracted to the previous layers. It's worth taking a little time over that, because as soon as it's melted and turned silver, it'll be a lot more noticeable than in the matte powder stage. Okay, pop that back into the pot, and then again heat set that. Again, because you're using lots of layers, you don't want to be overheating the silver, otherwise it'll eventually push and spread as the layers beneath melt. That's the centre band all finished now. So to assemble the card, take the section you finished earlier, and then I've used some ultra tack tape on the back. Again, because it's so embossed, it'll curl. Otherwise, remove that with the tweezers, and then very carefully line it up on the card, stick it down, and there you have it, your mottled Christmas bauble card.